Hi, I'm Luminousz Star. Welcome to the channel. All of you who are current subscribers, you already know you're my stars. Thank you for motivating me and inspiring me to keep this channel active. All of you are my stars for several reasons. I want to give a special shout out to my stars who share their stories. Now, this is one of the reasons why you are my stars, because you share your stories and you motivate me not only to keep the channel active, but you motivate me to continue to thrive forward. There's a lot of people out there that resonate with your stories. You never know who you will motivate to thrive forward. So in this 2018, we're thriving forward together. Keep sharing your stories. All of you who are visiting for the first time, welcome to Luminousz Star. Why don't you become a part of the Star family by hitting that subscription button below? We would love to have you join us. Today's video is you're uncomfortable around the narcissist because you identify with them. But you know what? May not be for the reasons that you might think. So some of us are very uncomfortable around the narcissist because we identify with them. But as I state, it may not be for the reasons that you think. And with that, I'm going to be going over several points, tools, mind the description box below. Don't forget to like and share today's video. First point, you may not hear this very often, but the narcissist is one who has a personality disorder due to being overly dependent upon others for emotional supply or support. The narcissist and those with a cluster B personality lack the ability to emotionally regulate, therefore tend to lack sustainable energy for themselves. However, this does not excuse their dysfunctional behavior. So the narcissist and or the cluster B personality, they have a very tough time emotionally regulating. The narcissist and the cluster B personality, they have a lack of energy. Emotion is energy in motion. So when the cluster B personality and or the narcissist lacks the ability to emotionally regulate, that means they lack not only that ability, but they lack energy. Emotion is energy in motion. This is why the narcissist usually likes to tap into the energy field of others, because they lack not only, again, that ability to emotionally regulate, but they also lack energy. So you may not hear very often that the narcissist and or the cluster personality, they are overly dependent on others. You may not have heard that one a lot. Therefore, they lack energy. So they usually are overly dependent upon others for emotional support. They're overly dependent upon others for that energy. They don't have enough energy to sustain themselves. However, this does not excuse their dysfunctional behavior. Let's move forward. They tap into the energy field of others in order to feed the false self-image. This supplies him or her with enough energy to continue to thrive forward, to prey upon others for more source supply and fuel. So once they tap into the energy field and they have enough energy, they can move on or they can thrive to feed off of others. This is not your fault. I bring that to your attention in hopes that you will begin to see how and why the narcissist and or the cluster B personality taps into the energy fields of others, because they lack the ability to emotionally regulate. Therefore, they don't have enough energy to sustain themselves. Is that your fault? Is that my fault? Absolutely not. Therefore, their dysfunctional behavior is inexcusable. Those who behave codependently and who may be empaths are those who tend to be on the opposite sides of the same spectrum as the narcissist and the cluster B personality. Make no mistake, this does not mean that the narcissist and the empath or codependent are just alike, sharing the same identity. So just because they have some things in common, that doesn't mean that they're the same identities. The empath, the codependent, and the narcissist and cluster B personality, they are not one and the same. There are some similarities though. This does not mean that they share the same identity. So let's not make that mistake. Okay, let's move forward. These particular groups of individuals are people who unconsciously overly depend upon others for emotional support and or supply. The root of this dynamic are grooming processes that took place during childhood, which is not his or her fault. A lot of children, unfortunately, are groomed by cluster B personality parents and those who have a narcissistic personality. Not all children were victimized in this way. I want to make that clear. I'm only speaking about the children who were groomed to behave either codependently or to develop a narcissistic personality disorder or a cluster B personality. These particular groups of individuals are people who usually overly depend upon others for emotional support and or supply in their relationships. The root, again, is the grooming process. So whenever you meet someone who may be overly dependent or seemingly overly dependent for emotional support of others or for supply from others, such as the empath, the codependent, the cluster B personality, and the narcissistic personality, the root of that is usually the grooming process that took place during their childhood. This is not their fault because they were children subjected to the grooming process by either the cluster B personality, the parent who has a codependency, and the parent who may have had a narcissistic personality. Let's move forward. These groups of individuals intuitively and sometimes unconsciously identify with one another, therefore tend to gravitate towards each other with a strong mysterious attraction. Unfortunately, for the duration of their dysfunctional relationship, enmeshment can and often does occur, resulting in one having a weaker sense of self. So this, unfortunately, is one of the adverse effects of having been a child raised by a cluster B personality parent or a parent who had a narcissistic personality. Even parents who may have behaved codependently and who were married or involved with a cluster B personality or a narcissistic personality. Another result of that particular dynamic is a person who grows up with a weaker sense of self, or they don't have a strong sense of themselves. They usually are suffering from an identity crisis. In other words, they really don't know who they are. They may go out and have careers. They may go out and do all kinds of things like get married and have children. However, they don't necessarily have a strong sense of their own identity. And I'm not saying that these people are damaged goods. I'm just making the point that there are a lot of us out here who we go on with life to the best of our ability. However, some of us do have a weaker sense of self. We have an identity crisis. Therefore, we really don't know who we really are. And this, again, comes from possibly when we were groomed as children to behave a particular way. One of the things that happens is that these particular types of individuals, they gravitate towards each other. Not necessarily consciously, but intuitively. In other words, it's hidden. They really don't understand why they're so attracted to each other, but they are. So take the empath, case in point, the empath and the narcissist. Intuitively and unconsciously, they identify with one another. They have a mysterious attraction. Okay? This does not mean they share the same identity. They're on opposite sides of the same spectrum. What is the spectrum? The spectrum is being overly dependent upon others for emotional support or supply. In the case of the narcissist, this would be the source supply. They're overly dependent upon others for the source supply. In the case of the empath, he or she may be overly dependent upon others for emotional support. Let's move forward. Unfortunately, due to diametrics or being extreme opposites, these individuals will feel the strong attraction, yet they will also repel. This adds to the tension which is present in their relationships with one another. So even though there may be a strong attraction between the empath and the narcissist, or say the cluster B personality and one who behaves codependently, the strong attraction is there. It may be mysterious. However, they will also repel because their weaknesses are the same. So one of the reasons for the strong attraction and then for them to repel is because their weaknesses are very similar. For instance, the empath, the narcissist, both have a weakness, usually have a weakness for being overly dependent upon others for either the emotional support or the source supply. This does not mean that the narcissist and the empath are identical in their identities. Doesn't mean that they're the same. Doesn't mean that they're both so much alike. No, this means that there's some similarities. This is why they repel, because their weaknesses are similar to one another. Therefore, they tend to not be able to have a healthy relationship with one another because their weaknesses are very similar, yet they are not identical when it comes to their identities. So these two groups of individuals, the empath and the narcissist, they are extreme opposites. Again, they tend to not be able to have a healthy relationship because their weaknesses have too many similarities. Yet these two groups are not identical when it comes to their identities. They're not twins, in other words. They're not exactly alike. When it comes to their weaknesses, these individuals tend to not be able to share the same space for a very long period of time. Yet, this is what they repeatedly do, unfortunately. The empath and the narcissist, they're attracted to one another, so they get into a relationship and they try to make it last for as long as they can. And what makes their relationship very dysfunctional, even though the relationship may go on for 10 years, the relationship may go on for 20 years. However, for the duration of their relationship, it is dysfunctional because their weaknesses, again, are very similar, so they will repel. You have two people, for example, one is an empath, one is a narcissist. They are forcing themselves to remain sharing the same space when actually their weaknesses causes them to repel. My opinion is, and again, it's just my opinion, that if the empath and the narcissist swapped each other's strengths, they probably can have a healthy relationship and a more balanced relationship. Yet, the narcissist and the cluster B personality and the empath and those who behave codependently, when they come into a relationship with each other, they tend to try to stay or remain in the same space for a long period of time. This places strain and tension on the relationship. And not only that, it makes for a hostile environment. It's not necessarily that these groups of individuals are bad people. No, it means that their weaknesses are very similar to the point where they will naturally repel against one another or from one another. Their strengths probably, if they were swapped, would probably enable them to have a healthy or more balanced relationship. Let's move forward. The result is often a hostile environment with a lot of tension when individuals such as empaths, codependents, narcissists, and cluster B personalities force themselves to share the same space for a very long period of time with his or her extreme opposite. Like I just mentioned in the previous slide, if you have two people or if you have a group of people who are extreme opposites, it'll be like a pressure cooker, basically, if they force each other to stay or remain in the same space for a very long period of time, because naturally they are extreme opposites. Yet when they force each other to stay around each other, the relationship tends to be toxic, full of tension, and the environment tends to be very hostile because you have a dysfunctional relationship. Let's move forward. Some have learned to coexist, yet many do not learn the valuable lessons of the dysfunctional relationship before or by the time the relationship has ended, therefore tend to unconsciously repeat the behavior pattern of investing in dysfunctional relationships. And there you have it. Usually when empaths and narcissists or those who have a cluster B personality and those who behave codependently, when they come together and they have a relationship with each other, they tend to not learn the valuable lessons during the course of the relationship or by the time the relationship is over. They tend to just move on and just repeat the behavior pattern of investing in a yet another dysfunctional relationship. This is usually what happens. So some empaths and narcissists, some who behave codependently, and some who have a cluster B personality, they have learned to coexist with one another. But this is rarely the case. Rarely. Because if they have learned to coexist, that means they have found out how to have a balanced relationship. But I just shared with you what my opinion was, and again, it's just my opinion, and that is, if the narcissist and the cluster B personality and those who behave codependently and those who consider themselves empaths, if they were to swap each other's strengths, then they probably would have a very good chance of having a balanced and healthy relationship. Again, that's just my opinion. And this tends to not happen too often. I'm not saying it has never happened. This is why I stated that some have learned to coexist. Because it is my opinion, again, this is the only way they're going to be able to learn how to coexist, is that if each one of them see what their weaknesses are and each one of them know their strengths and they're willing to compromise. They're willing to kind of like swap strengths. In other words, you know what the strength of the narcissist is, and you learn that particular behavior and you incorporate it into your life, and vice versa. The narcissist learns what your strengths are, and he or she chooses to incorporate those behaviors into his or her life. Again, you're compromising. You're learning how to coexist with one another. But yet again, this is not something that happens very often. So some have learned to coexist, and they do have a pretty good relationship. But like I stated before, many do not learn those valuable lessons by the time the relationship is over or during the relationship. They haven't learned those valuable lessons, so they have to repeat a particular scenario until they learn those valuable lessons. And usually when they repeat that scenario, that means they have invested in another dysfunctional relationship. The relationship that they had before, those issues that were there before, will pop up in the new relationships. New place, new face, same scenario. And they have to repeat this because they did not learn the valuable lessons from the previous relationships. We all go through this. Let's move forward. First tool, take time out to obtain solitude. Having some time to yourself while becoming accustomed to experiencing silence may prove to be a real game changer. Choosing to meditate does not necessarily only entail that one sits in a yoga position while repeatedly stating Om. Okay, this is so true. So taking some time out to obtain solitude. I can tell you from experience that once you become accustomed to experiencing silence, that means reduced noise in the background. That's what that is. It is a game changer. You can concentrate more, you can focus better. And meditating does not necessarily entail sitting in a yoga position and stating Om, okay? It doesn't mean that. There's very creative ways that one can meditate, okay? I want to encourage all of my stars especially to research meditation. Taking time out to obtain solitude, I can tell you from personal experience, yes, it is a game changer. Life circumstances, life challenges, and life situations does not always permit us to take a lot of time out for solitude. So I understand that you're going to have to become committed to your own healing process to incorporate solitude. Once you incorporate solitude, more than likely you're going to begin to see the difference. You're going to see the difference in your life because you're able to focus and concentrate better. You'll be able to see where you need to build your support base. You'll be able to see who and what your support base should consist of. Once you obtain solitude in your life, things will become a little bit more clearer to you. Solitude is that powerful. Try it. I challenge you to just try it. Take some time out, even if it's just 5 minutes. Take some time out to enjoy silence. For some, it's going to be quite the challenge because some of you come from a very volatile background, whereas you have had a lot of dysfunctional relationships and you are accustomed to the noise. I understand that because a lot of dysfunctional relationships are not relationships where you can enjoy solitude. In other words, you don't enjoy peace of mind. You really can't hear your own thoughts because you're surrounded by people who are all about the drama. This is real life. This is real talk here. Some people are very accustomed to having very volatile and dysfunctional relationships with a lot of people. So this particular tool is really going to be not only a game changer, but I'm just going to forewarn you, it's going to be a challenge. Because how do you come from noise to trying to enjoy silence? There are two opposites. There's your contrast. You have noise and then you have silence. How do you come from one to the other? It's going to be an adjustment. Are you committed to your healing? That's the rhetorical question I have for everyone watching. Are you committed to your healing to the point where you will take time out for solitude? Will you try it? So there's your challenge. But I'm here to tell you from personal experience that it does very much work. It's a game changer. When I started to take time out for myself to have solitude, again, changed my life. It was not easy for me to do. It was not easy for me to do this. I had so many things that I was thinking about. I was more of an analytical person, overly thinking things. So a person like me, when we talk about being in silence and having some solitude, well, that can be frightening at first. Okay, some of us don't, we don't want to be alone with ourselves. Let's just face it. However, taking time out to obtain solitude can be a real game changer because it will place certain things into a clearer perspective, such as what one may need to do in order to continue to thrive forward, what one may need to do in order to begin to build a support base. These things more than likely will come to you, but you cannot really think those things when your mind is racing and when there's a lot of noise, not only in your head, but around you, because you are surrounding yourself with people who are about that drama. Okay, some of you been there, done that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm speaking from personal experience. It's like, how do you come from noise to solitude or to silence? Not very easy to do, but once you commit to your own healing, you will make that time. You will do just that. Because that's part of your healing. That's part of your support base. So you will do what you need to do to take some time out for yourself for the solitude. Let's move on to the next tool. Keep a journal. By recording your life experiences, this more than likely will give you a clearer picture of who you are. How you perceive your experiences has more to do with your true identity than those experiences. How you choose to resolve your personal challenges has more to do with your true identity than the challenges. You are not the narcissist. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can keep a journal. You don't have to place pen to pad. So by keeping a journal, writing it down or speaking out about it will place a lot of things into a clearer perspective for you. Let's move forward. Consider your subconscious mind. Many children are groomed to behave codependently, which teaches one how to sacrifice themselves and please others who may have a predatory nature. You have probably been experiencing an identity crisis for a very long time. Changing the programming within your subconscious mind may prove to be a game changer. So study and research the subconscious mind. That's my challenge to everyone watching this video. Research and study the subconscious mind. It proves to be a game changer because once you learn how the subconscious mind works, you will begin to see how you can change yourself. You're already changing, because if you are very uncomfortable with having a relationship with a narcissist or a cluster personality, that is proof, or that confirms that you are outgrowing. You're outgrowing these types of dysfunctional relationships. That's a sign again that you are changing. But you don't have to stop there. Your subconscious mind, the programming can be changed. So I want to encourage everyone again to study and research the subconscious mind. It is truly a game changer. So consider your subconscious mind. And remember, you are not the narcissist. Just because there are some similarities and maybe in some of your weaknesses or even strengths, does not mean that you are that person and they are you. No one can be you better than you. The narcissist does not really know you as well as you may think. The narcissist likes to convince others that they know them very well. This is usually not the case, because the narcissist has detached from his or herself that is authentic. So how can they really know you? They may have knowledge of some of the mistakes you've made in life, some of your most embarrassing moments, because they tend to draw off of that. So they like to tap into your energy field when you are feeling sad, when you're in a state of depression, when you're feeling angry, when you are mismanaging your anger, when you don't have your ego or your emotions in check, or there's an imbalance. See, this is when the narcissist likes to tap into your energy field. In other words, when you're not at your best, mentally, spiritually, psychologically, so on and so forth, even emotionally. You ever notice that the narcissist like to come around you when you're really down on your luck? That's when they really like to stick around you. But when things are going well for you, they don't like to share in the celebration. You ever notice that? Well, this is why. Because the narcissist likes to tap into the energy field of others who are down on their luck, yet they are strong enough to take their BS. They exploit the strengths of others. The narcissist likes to exploit. So when we express, they exploit. If you take nothing away from this video, please take that away. When you express, the narcissist exploits. And this is all in the name of obtaining source supply for their false self-image. These are the references and resources. Please check these out in the description box below. I'm Luminousz Star. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned for more videos. I wish you the very best.